Okay, hi everybody. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about finger discipline, finger technique, specifically with the left hand. So what I mean by that is often I see people and they are playing a riff, a scale, an arpeggio, and they are lacking the finger discipline, and they're making things hard for themselves by sort of boxing out their other fingers or stretching when they don't have to or jumping around the neck too much. So let's just give you an example. So if I were to play a very simple riff like Iron Man, okay? So there's your riff. Now, some people play that all with one finger. You know, that's fine for locating power chords, right? When you're playing the riff and power chords. But if I'm going to play the single string, like when he's singing, I'm going to start with my third finger and move to my first finger and then my third. See how ergonomic that is? Instead of jumping all over the place. Or, you know, starting with this finger and having to stretch that one over. We want to keep it like a zone defense where each finger gets its own fret. And the same goes for scales and arpeggios, which we'll get into. So when I move up here, I'm going to keep with two fingers. Instead of jumping around with one, I'm just going to have two. This one's going to stay in place. And then down. Right? That would be a simple riff. And rather than playing with one finger and jumping all over the place, you can really make things easier for yourself by just sort of knowing which finger is doing what. A lot of that comes from practicing scales and arpeggios. So if I'm going to play a scale, like the minor scale, let's say, I'm going to have that same zone defense approach where each finger gets its own fret and we do not stray into the other guy's fret. Okay? Now in this particular scale, I'm doing this in A. Here I need to step out of the fret, but everybody else follows and step back in so the fingering stays disciplined. Okay. So obviously practicing scales is a great way to do it, but just making sure you're staying disciplined with that. Now I know I grew up playing blues, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Clapton and whatnot, and I would use my third finger instead of my pinky. And to be fair, I still do a lot of the time when I'm playing bluesy stuff. It's just a force of habit. It still works. So I'm not saying this is like a must do, but it is highly recommended. Because if I play some other kind of line, right? The fingering, look at that, I cheated over. But in this case, that worked. So it's a bit flexible, but the idea of this zone defense, each finger gets its own fret, and whatever you're doing really helps keep things easier for your hand. Same will go with your arpeggios. If I'm going to play a major arpeggio, root 3 5 7, root 3 5 7, root. I'm going to keep that same fingering throughout the arpeggio. Okay, so it's pretty simple. I mean, you can do that. You can do these kind of exercises where it's just an alternate picking exercise where you're just walking your fingers. Up the neck and backwards. Again, keeping the zone defense going, keeping each finger in its own fret. You can make that a little more complicated. We'll get stretchy here. Anyways, that's a kind of a weird one, but again, it's just all about finger discipline. So I guess the main thing to get out of today, the zone defense. So when you're practicing your scales and arpeggios, or your licks or jazz heads, whatever you're doing, try to keep that idea of the zone defense going, where each finger has its own fret. It doesn't cheat over into the other guy's fret, unless it's really necessary. Okay? All right, hope that helps. Have a great day.